Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast, where we'll talk with real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business leaders, athletes, and more to inspire you with their success stories so you can work hard, never give up, and dream huge. And now, let's start the show.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Dream Huge podcast. Man, super excited for this one today. We love to share success stories from other huge dreamers, folks in the real estate business, entrepreneurs, movers, shakers, influencers, and more. And hopefully, these stories will help to motivate and inspire you to also dream huge, baby. And today we have our very special guest, Joel Friedland. He is with Brit Properties. You can check them out online at britproperties.com. Joel, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Pete. It is really great to be with you today.
Hey, thank you for taking the time. We are going to talk some real estate today. We're going to talk some syndications, some investing in commercial real estate, and some other things along those lines. So let's start right at the top, Joel. Tell us what it is that you guys do at Brit Properties.
We are syndicators. That means that we buy properties and then we get a group of investors together. We pool this group of investors and everybody chips in a certain amount of money. And as a group, we then own the property. And as the syndicator, I'm also called the sponsor, which means I'm in charge of making the decisions and making sure people make their returns, get their cash flow distributions, and that we don't lose their money, that's number one. Let's not lose their money.
And better yet, let's make them some.
Yes, well, let's do both.
So this is what I love about this. But isn't it dangerous? Doesn't it worry you, like borrowing money from friends and associates and then investing that into real estate? What's your mindset on that?
Okay, so first of all, that's a great question, the word borrowing. What we do is we don't borrow the money. We become co-owner partners. So we're not borrowing from them. What we're doing is they're coming in with us. We invest, they invest. So let me give you an example. And by the way, I started out as an agent when I was 22, and that was 44 years ago, and now I'm 66. And maybe I can help some of the younger people avoid disastrous mistakes.
Please, let's learn from your lessons.
I've made a whole bunch of disastrous mistakes. I started out at age 22. I graduated from college and I went to work for a family in Chicago where I lived. That was a father, two sons and a daughter, and they were syndicators with a group of maybe 70 investors. They owned 84 industrial buildings and industrial parks here in the Chicago area, some in the city, some in the suburbs. They hired me to be an agent. So my job, just like what you guys do, was to sell a building or lease a building that was in their portfolio when it came available. So if a tenant was in a building, and let me tell you the kind of tenants we have. We have tenants that make stuff. We have a tenant that makes dog food. We have a tenant that makes protein bars. We have a tenant called the U.S. Postal Service. They deliver things. We've got a tenant called AT&T. They have a facility where they do these underground fiber cables. And so what I did when I was younger is I went around making leases and sales. And then I figured out a few years in that the family I worked for was very wealthy. And the way they got there was not by being agents, but by being owners. Because as an agent, you can go make a commission. You can make $20,000, $30,000, even on a big deal, $100,000 or more. But if you buy a building for $1 million and you own it for 10 years and you sell it for $2.5 million, $1.5 million is like 15 years of making $100,000 a year, all in 1 year. So I saw what they were doing and I said, I don't think being an agent full-time is going to be for me long-term. I'll stay as an agent. I'll keep brokering. But as I go, I'm going to acquire one building a year, two buildings a year. And then maybe when I get old one day, like I am today at 66, 44 years later, if I bought two buildings a year, I would have bought 88 buildings. And guess what? I have bought 88 buildings with investors. Some have gone great. Some have been not so great. I had deals where we lost all of our money. I've had deals where we lost some of our money. But of the 88 deals that I could talk about right now, I could go on and on and on and bore everybody with all the 88 deals. But of those deals, I lost money on 10. We still own 26. So that's 36. And that means that the other 52 have been sold at various profits and various break evens and things like that. I'll give you an example of how we do it. We go door to door canvassing. Do you do canvassing? Do you like stop in and see people?
Tell us about your method, though.
So my method is, because it's industrial, we go to a business park where they have all these big buildings. And I walk in the front door and I ask for the owner of the company, who usually is the owner of the building. And usually I get thrown out. At one time, there were these two big guys. I walked in, it was a town called Alsip, Illinois. I walk in the door and I said, just kiddingly, hey, you guys want to move? And they said, who are you? I said, well, I'm a real estate agent, and I'd like you to move from this building to a building I have down the street, and you can move out of this dump. And they said, dump? Dump? And they looked at each other, and they came to me and they picked me up, one under one arm and one under the other arm. They were very big guys, and I'm a very little guy. And they carried me out the front door of their place, and they threw me into the parking lot in front of the building. And they said, and you never come back.
No.
So I stopped using the term move out of this dump.
Did they seriously pick you up and throw you out?
Yeah, they threw me out. I was wearing a nice pair of pants. I tore my pants at the knee. I cut my knee open. So yeah, so I don't do that anymore. Now I walk in and I say something a little bit less controversial, like, hey, this is a great building, but I have a building a few doors down the street that's available for lease or sale. Would you guys consider moving? And I one time did that, and there was a receptionist, the secretary, sitting at the front desk, and I said, do you think you guys would consider moving? And she said, no, we're not moving. And I said, how do you know? She says, because I live three blocks away and I can actually walk to work. I said, do you own the company? She said, no. So I saw a guy sitting in an office like right behind her with the door open, and it looked like the owner of the company. I said, so you don't want to sell the building and move? So that he could hear it. And I said, okay. And I walked out the door, and this guy comes chasing after me. And he says, listen, what's your name? I said, Joel. He said, all right, I'm Don. We are moving. We are selling. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Oh, gosh.
He said, so what would you offer me for the building? And I said, can you give me a tour? So we walked back in, and I smiled at her. I said, hello again.
I love it.
And we walked around the building, and this is going to be the greatest real estate story you've ever heard.
Please.
I said to him, let's go for a cup of coffee at Denny's. And we went to Denny's, and we had coffee, and it was a 10,000 square foot building. And at the time, it was worth about $800,000. I said, Don, my group, I have a group of investors. There's about 20 of us, and I lead the group. We'll pay you $800,000. He said, Joel, you got a deal. So we shook hands, and we made the deal. We bought the building, and by door-to-door canvassing in that neighborhood the following month, I found someone who wanted a 10,000 foot building to buy. And it was a machine shop. They made parts for plastic injection molding machines, whatever that is. And anything made out of plastic, usually there's an injection molding machine. And he said, we rent and we're pissing our money away. I said, will you come look at a building that I just bought? And we walked down the street, and Don was still there. He hadn't moved out yet. I said, Don, I've got someone who wants to look at the building. He said, oh, come on in. So I walked the guy around, and he asked, how much for the building? And I said, well, we're asking $1.4 million. And he said, I wouldn't pay a penny over $1.2 million. And I said, how about if we split the difference, we do $1.3 million? He said, Deal. So that's better than being an agent, because what happened, we bought it for 800,000, we sold it for $1.3 million. So we made $500,000 minus the costs, because I had to pay brokerage fees, lawyers, closing costs. So we made $400,000 in a month. Really, it was 2 months, because it took them 30 days to get their money and close the deal. And Don never knew. I didn't tell him. I would have made him. He would have felt bad, right? Like, I could have sold it for $1.3 million. So I have 20 investors. We made 400,000, and we borrowed money at that time. We actually put in 200,000. We borrowed 600,000 from the bank. So everybody who put in 20,000 got their 20 back plus another 40,000, because the profit was 200%. Now that was my best story. You want to hear the worst?
Yeah, but first, before we jump into the worst, how important is it in your business and in sales in general to get face to face with the client?
I've never done business with anyone I haven't met. So the answer is 100% important.
So important. Would you have gotten that deal if you had not gotten face to face with that client?
No way.
So you deserved a profit on that deal because you had the courage and the confidence to put yourself out there repeatedly and lose multiple times on multiple deals.
Yeah.
Eventually get a good deal. And sure, the current owner could have walked down the street and made that deal as well, but he didn't because he was busy doing what he does, which is
Yeah.
owning and running a business.
Yeah.
You are the real estate deal maker. You are the relationship cultivator, and you are rewarded for that. So
That's
awesome job there.
Yeah, I think that so I built my company up. It's not as big as yours. I had 26 agents at one time, and we were rocking and rolling. And I used to have sales meetings. And what I would say in the sales meetings when I was leading a sales meeting was, we're not selling real estate, we're selling meetings. If you can sell yourself into a meeting, that's the only way that you're ever going to make a deal. You can't make a deal with someone you haven't met with. And so someone's calling me on that phone, so I just clicked it off. The biggest thing, you're right. If you don't get face to face, hang it up. You can't do business by email. You can't do it by phone, because you have to shake hands and look somebody right in the eye and say, let's do this or let's do that. Not you. I could go to a restaurant now, and if I saw Don there, I'd say, hey, Don, Joel, remember we made that deal? Oh, yeah, hey, how you doing? And I helped him, even though he didn't sell it for the maximum price, because he moved and bought another building that was bigger that he needed to grow out of the building we bought. And he probably made millions in his business. He made metal parts for tractors or something.
Yeah, it can always be a win-win. It can be a win-win. Absolutely. Okay, so tell us about your worst deal.
Okay. Every time I tell this story, my wife doesn't even like hearing the address. We bought a building that I thought I could rehab, and it was in horrible, horrible shape. And we bought it for $1.1 million with our investor group. And it ended up being a deal where I thought I was going to spend $1 million to fix it up and be in for 2.1. And actually, it ended up costing $2.5 million to fix it up. And then the economy got bad. There was this downturn. And so now I'm into this building for $3.6 million, and we ended up selling it for $4 million. We carried it for 2 years vacant. So I overspent by well over $1 million and carried it for well over $500,000. So we lost all of our money, gone down the drain, gone. And what I learned is that I'll do a light rehab. Like, we just bought a building in December for $1.9 million, and the rehab's $350,000. That's reasonable. We're going to put on a new roof. The roof leaks. We're going to put on in a new parking lot. The parking lot's all cracked up. We're going to fix up the front office. We're going to carpet, paint. The bricks need some work. It needs a lot of work, but $350,000 to just do some fix-ups, 5 things, is different than rehabbing an entire building from scratch and spending more than the building's worth. And that's hopefully going to work out well, but I would never take on a redevelopment, a major redevelopment or a development deal anymore. I got too badly burned.
Lesson learned there.
Yeah.
And just for those of you who are new kind of to the syndication model, and Joel explained it great. He's not borrowing money from his friends. He's actually offering them an investment opportunity they may not otherwise have on their own. And real estate investing, if you want to scale, really is a team sport. So the more you get into it, the more you figure out, hey, I can only go so far on my own with this. So to partner with somebody amazing like Joel and Brit Properties would seem like an awesome idea for you to scale quickly. So you mentioned light rehab fits your buy box. Commercial over residential fits your buy box. Why is that?
Specifically,
What you
all
like?
industrial, nothing but industrial. We don't do stores. We don't do office. We don't do self storage. We don't do any other kind of commercial. Industrial is its own thing, and it's warehouses and manufacturing buildings where companies operate inside and people make or distribute things.
And what's your reason for liking that segment?
Well, again, it goes back to when I was 22. I was hired by this family, and they were in the industrial business. And I think people generally fall into what they do. I don't think I would have said when I was in middle school or in high school, I'm going to go into industrial real estate. I just met somebody in the business and they hired me. But here's the key. This is the number one thing for me. I got great mentorship. I had Richard, Steve, Milt, and Randy. And the four of those people, they mentored me. They taught me everything they knew. And I soaked it up so that I could know what those four people knew. And I could be really good at it because I learned from their mistakes. I learned from their successes. They gave me a lot of guidance. So mentorship, I think, is the key to success. If you go try something on your own, you might be able to make it work. But the disadvantage you're at, if you don't have somebody who's already gone down that journey and learned all those lessons, I think it's a real big ask. The concept of huge dreams, I think, has to do with huge relationships. It's all the relationships, don't you think?
Absolutely. Every piece of real estate that we've purchased has been through relationships. And that goes back to your getting face to face. And I wanted to touch on this too, because we're also on the same mindset on this. We do have a brokerage, but I preach in our sales meetings, you are a real estate investor first and foremost. Second, you're a listing agent. Third, you're a buyer's agent. In that order to create success and financial freedom for you and your families. Because look, those closing checks only come for the average agent every now and then. And you can't survive off that. But you do have to reinvest that. And you can't save your way to wealth. But I'm a firm believer you can leverage and invest your way into wealth.
Yeah.
And so we've always been an investor, first mindset, because that is how you can set you and your family up. And hopefully my agents are listening. All agents everywhere are listening to this, because Joel had the same mindset when he got started. And he kind of just transitioned into that investor.
And I've now mentored somewhere in the neighborhood of about 120 people over the years. And I can't make somebody good if they're not good. And I can't make somebody kind, and I can't make them givers. People come to you as who they are, and you can't change them. And a lot of people are really difficult. And the other thing is that if you're kind and if you're hardworking and if you're ambitious and you do everything right, you might come across people who are nasty, terrible people. You want to see my favorite book?
Yeah.
I was at a grocery store and I got this book. It's called What the Bible Says About Dealing with Difficult People. It is the greatest book I've ever read.
I love it.
If you know about the 12-step programs, there's the serenity prayer that they always say, which is you can't change people. You got to accept reality, and you got to know the difference between what you can change and what you have to accept. This is like a giant version of the serenity prayer. It's not how you're going to change anyone. It's how you're going to react to them. I can't recommend it enough. It's from Choice Books, info at Choice Books. This is the best book And it's got little chapters, 36 chapters that are 3 pages each. This one says, forgive everybody. Avoid senseless arguments.
I'm liking this already.
Isn't this great? It's great.
I'm writing it down. It's going to be next on my read.
It's real. Guard against people with explosive emotions. This book has been, and I've only had it for a few weeks, and I read this thing. It took me an hour to read it. It's only about 100 pages. And it applies to everything in life. My relationship with my wife, my kids, my mother, my friends. It's like a secret weapon.
Dude, you found the handbook.
It's the handbook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it, Joel. Hey, brother, what's next for you guys at Brit?
We are adding a lot more investors. We're increasing the amount that most investors put in. I'll give you an example. An investor might stay in the 25,000 range per deal. When I call and say, hey, I've got a deal, you want to go in? And yeah, I'll go in for 25,000. But as people become more successful over the years, their 25,000 increments might turn into 100,000 or even 200,000. And I get new people that don't know me, but because of reputation and references, I might get someone for 250 or 500,000. So my goal for this year is to raise somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 million and to buy somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 properties. Last year we bought 7.
Excellent. Hey, Joel, as an investor comes to you with, say, 25,000, what does the return look like? Are they also getting real estate tax benefits on top of that? And lastly, are you getting folks with self-directed IRAs coming to you?
Yes, yes, and yes. We do have a lot of people with the self-directeds. The people who join us, generally speaking, are accredited. It means that they're sophisticated investors for the most part. You don't really have to be sophisticated; you just have to make a certain amount of money and or have a certain net worth. You sort of have to be a minor millionaire to invest in this stuff. It's one of the federal rules that they've set.
Which is, what is it, 250 a year, $1 million net worth, something along those lines to be accredited?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, you really have to have a net worth of about $1.5 million because it can't include your home. If you got a $500,000 home and you've got $1 million total of net worth, you don't qualify because it can't include your house. And as far as the income one goes, I believe it's $200,000 a year if you're single, and I think it's $300,000 a year if you're married, because they figure that your spouse works.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent info. So, and then the types of returns we can expect and the types of real estate tax benefits that we can expect.
Okay, so the tax benefits are all income tax benefits, and we do something called a cost segregation. It's a well-known term. It's where they accelerate the depreciation on paper, and you get to more or less not pay any taxes for a few years on your return. And our returns usually start out right around a 7% yield. So if you invested 100,000, you'd make 7,000 the first year. And they generally go up every year because the rents go up every year. The tax benefits depend on how much you make and how good your accountant is, pretty much.
Sure. Yeah, but and jumping back to the cost seg, the accelerated depreciation, this is very handy for investors who made a bunch of money last year and now owe a bunch of taxes. So they can invest in real estate with you, do a cost seg, and accelerate all that depreciation up into that first year so they can take a huge write-off that first year and offset that great year they had in their other ventures, correct?
Yeah. Milt Podolsky, who was my old mentor, he was the father back when I was 22. He showed me his tax return. It was about that thick, and he had 84 buildings. He was a partner in 84 buildings, and he was very wealthy. I'm in today's world, he'd probably have a net worth of hundreds of millions. And he lived a really nice lifestyle with money that he was making from his real estate. But he showed me his tax return, said, I was 23 years old. It was my first year. He said, I paid no tax. I said, what? Yep, I paid no tax. How did you do that? He says, it's the magic of owning real estate and having a good accountant. Yeah.
That's it. Where good accountants help you maximize your legal deductions.
Exactly.
Right? That's all we're doing. We're taking advantage of everything that is legal to do. You should be taking advantage of those tax deductions. And you and your real estate investor group and your CPA should be as well. That is great stuff. Okay, Joel, leave us with something for the kiddos, the young ones just getting started. Final words of advice to be successful in real estate like you.
Number one, number two, number three, all the way up. Find your mentor, the person who is today what you want to be later, and have them teach you what they know. I have so many stories of people that I mentored and other people that I know that were mentored by other older folks who had experience. And it should probably be somebody 20 years older than you. Because if they're just a couple years older and you work in the same company, you might look at it as like, I'm competing with that person. If they're 20 years older, they're in the next level. They're not worried about you competing. They're worried about you helping. So that is it. For sure, it's mentorship all the way.
Great advice and details on that mentorship as well. Thank you, Joel Friedland with Brit Properties. That's BRIT, 1T, BritProperties.com. Check them out. Are you guys on social? Any other ways to follow you besides the website?
Website's the best way. I'm on LinkedIn and all over the place, but I don't know how to use any of that because I'm 66. So the website's best.
That's all right. BritProperties.com. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you very much. Thank you for helping share your knowledge and offering investors a great opportunity to get into some real estate, some commercial real estate. So
thank you, Pete.
Joel Friedland, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining the Dream Huge podcast. And as always, remember the rules. Work hard, never give up, and dream huge. Let's see the guns, Joel. Dream huge. Yes. And read that book. What the Bible says about dealing with difficult people. I'm getting it. It's next on my list. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you for listening to the Dream Huge podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. For more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dream Huge Realty and on TikTok at Dream Huge Inc. Until next time.